right, welcome in. Good afternoon, everybody. Afternoon Live, part of the Maize and Blue Review. Weekdays at 1 o'clock. We are part of Rivals.com, talking the latest in Michigan sports. And quite often on Thursdays, we bring in the former Wolverine, Jim Scarcelli. And today is Thursday, and here he is on the line. Scar, how are you?
I'm good, man. Life is good. I'm happy what I saw from our team at the spring game, and we got the hockey team going at it tonight. A lot of good things to talk about.
Yeah, there sure is. Let's start with that spring game. It's been a few days. We know we had that game was on TV. It was on the radio. You could walk into the big house there. What are some of the things that stood out to you? What's the first thing you go to?
Well, like I said when I went to practice, I think we have a lot of good players. I think we've recruited well. I see good depth all over the place. I see the future looks good. But when you look at it, when you're watching a spring game, and I dissected it pretty good. You watch a play and you see a defensive end come off the edge and make a good, put some pressure on. But at the downside is, well, how bad is that tackle? Because it's our guy. So if somebody does something good, many times there's somebody that isn't stepping up. But there was I was able to really take a good look at a lot of players. Again, I think we have a lot of depth. The only position I think I was questioning our depth was at linebacker, and I'm going to go over all the position groups as we get into a little later. But we've got a lot of competition for a lot of jobs. I think there's a few that are pretty much solidified on defense, but there's a lot that are up for grabs. What really jumps out at me, Denny, and a great coach told me this a long time ago when I got into coaching. He said, Scar, you got to be known for something. So what that means is, what do you do on defense? That's what you are. That's what you run year in, year out. And your players get good at something. Now on offense, Jim Harbaugh has his offense. We are known for something. We can run. We're going to run our power with our three tight ends. And we can go empty. But what we saw Saturday, that is the foundation of what we are. I hear, some of the analysts talking, this, that, maybe that we might put this. No, we ain't put the 90% of what we are is in. We have a structure. We have a system. When I played, I did the same damn thing for 5 years. I had to perfect the same techniques. So that makes it easy on players. When you've got different coaches coming in and different schemes, you're changing technique. You don't really get good at something. And Jim Harbaugh definitely believes in that philosophy. And we are just going to continue to get good at what we've done. And there was some good stuff there. I tried to get a feel for the offense and defensive coordinators, but I think they're going to be really consistent. There's going to be subtle changes, I think, between McDonald and Minter. But I think the foundation and the scheme is, I just hope that he has the mind to adjust, like McDonald did. And I think offensively, you're going to see pretty similar, because, we'll have the reverse in every now and then, the halfback. He'll have those things in, but the foundation is what it is. So I threw some stuff at you. And go ahead, just give me your thoughts on what I started with. I don't want to keep beating. I don't want to go too long, Denny.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing you said is what jumped out to me as well, is that you have to consider what you're looking at in practice there. And after Cade McNamara, played the 4 series, this Davis Warren, he can really fire the ball. He's got a really good arm. There's some other teams, heck, you can watch pro teams, and you get down to where you're talking about third string and beyond. You have to say, well, what are we really looking at here? The people know they really can't throw the ball, but he's got enough of an arm where you could get some reps downfield. You could see how these corners could turn and play the ball down the field. Same thing with the safeties. And, that guy's got a real rocket. So that really was able to help out the defense from a practice standpoint and being able to watch it, because these guys had to be on their toes because he could take the top off of a defense. So that was the first thing there. Let me take you to the defense. What do you think? So last year, the calling card was obviously the two defensive ends or outside linebackers being able to put pressure, 55 and 97. Jabo and Hutchinson being able to get all of the sacks with 25. And so now with Michigan having different players in that role, whether it's going to be Mike Morris, whether it's going to be Taylor Upshaw or anybody else, is that what you say the calling card of the Michigan defense is? Attacking and being able to get the pressure on the quarterback, whether it's going to be from defensive ends, outside linebackers, or even on the guys in the interior.
You know, when analysts use that word attacking, you know, what does that mean? Does that mean attack and high risk attack? You know, give up, put people in man coverage all the time. I think we do things. The McDonald Mentor scheme that we have now is we are going to do different things to create chaos for the protection and the offensive line, but we're not going to be a high risk team. So, but I'm going to start with the edge guys, Denny. I'll tell you what I see. I think Morris is solid, number 90. He's a solid player. He's a guy that is locked in. He could have a great year. And I think something that I really think needs to be said. When I look at Ojabo and Hutchinson last year, and I played that position, you know, I would say most of the pressures they had were from schemes and stunts that allowed them to take inside goes on guys. You know, when you take an inside stunt, that's a stunt. And, you know, and those make it easier to have sacks, to have pressures. So very seldom was it just, you know, let those guys rush and beat a guy. But McDonald or Morris is solid. They're going to play him also when they go into the 3-4, and he'll play two positions if that makes sense to you. 32 Harrell is going to come. Well, I think 91 Upshaw is going to be the other guy that we'll probably see to start the first game. Those are two old guys. You're going to give the old guys the first shot. Upshaw's been around. He's a fifth-year guy. He's a physical kid. He's a tough kid.
He played last year a lot. I mean, he was in there when Ojabo and needed a break. It's not like he didn't get any snaps. Yeah,
he might have. Denny, I think he might have started the first game until Ojabo. I'm not quite sure, but he played a lot earlier. Then he started to get less and less time. But he's a guy that has to have a great year. Morris and him, they're going to get the first shot. Those are our starting edge guys. That's what they call them. They don't call them outside linebackers anymore. It's pretty much the same damn thing I did, but they call them edge guys now. But he's going to get the first crack. But, you know, I'd like to see the pass rush. I think he's pretty good against the run, but I think he's the guy that is most susceptible to getting some pressure from McGregor. McGregor got better. He's a big strapping kid. I shook his hand. I met him at practice. He's a good-looking kid. He's going to get better. Harrell, 32, he got better. He's got to be able to rush the quarterback better. He looked better to me Saturday when I was watching him play.
Let me jump in on Harrell, Scar. You just said it right there. He needs to get better at rushing the quarterback. When Michigan was in situations where it looked like rundowns, I mean, he was out there over Ojabo, and in some games he played more snaps than Ojabo. So 32 has been out there a lot, taking it to the next step. So if you're good against the run, what is it? It's a lack of speed, athleticism, where, you know, he's more of somebody that can stand up against the run but not get to the quarterback, or just Ojabo is that much better? How do you see, you know, Harrell fitting in? Is he going to be more of a two-down linebacker or edge guy, or do you think that, you know, you can leave him out there for the entirety?
Yeah, you know, Danny, that's interesting. And what I would say to answer your question was two things. Ojabo, because he hasn't played as much football, he wasn't as good technique-wise playing run. So part of that was Ojabo was not as good playing run, and rushing the quarterback, a lot of it is just genetic speed. And Harrell he did some things Saturday that showed me that he can be a better pass rusher. You know, a lot of it might be his technique just has to be refined more. But I saw him improving. I see him improving. I see McGregor improving. I see four really solid guys there that give us depth. The young kid, 42, TJ, he's young. Yeah, he's a young kid. He'll be in the mix 2-3 years from now. But he's a guy that could be a real good player. Another young guy was 52, Bennett. He's another young kid, good depth, couple years down the line. Denny, when I was watching these guys, I'm thinking about me. You know, I've seen myself. I remember my freshman spring, if someone was to watch me, they'd say, that Scarcelli will never play. He's terrible. After my second spring, they said, you know, he's kind of decent. He might be okay. I don't know. But my third, you know, now you just keep getting better. And that's what I was seeing with all these kids that play in that position. But as far as the edge guys go, I think we got 4 solid guys that give us depth. And the future looks good, but if you want me to work, that's what I'm seeing at that position.
Well, we got some feedback, but while you were talking and you know, speaking of those young guys, you know, sometimes there's exceptions to the rule, and I'm wondering if 55 might be one of those guys. You're talking about somebody that's you know, playing defensive tackle or nose guard down there. Mason Graham, he's just a true freshman. He was in for spring. He was out there a lot on Saturday. And he didn't look like he was getting pushed around. He didn't look like he was out of position. He looked like he was making some plays. He looked like he belonged. Can Michigan fans expect him to get into the rotation, or is that asking too much for a true freshman playing a tackle position in 2022?
No, he was outstanding for a kid that's supposed to be in high school. And I'll get into that. Now, people have to understand the Michigan defense, there's a pretty significant, not hugely significant, but there's a different body type, skill set for our edge guys compared to our inside 1 and 3 technique, the guys that play over the guards. But I'll start with Graham if you want, but he definitely is a good looking for a kid who's supposed to be in high school. You can tell he's been coached. He's a big, massive kid. He didn't stand. The first thing you see is guys playing, they don't play good technique when they're young. And that's, in general, that's what you're seeing from a lot of the young linemen is they stand up. Their technique is not as good. But this kid, he will be in the mix. He will not be redshirted. I'll go say that right now. He's got a good bull rush. You know, the big thing is, can he rush the quarterback? Because a lot of those big, thick guys, you know, they don't always have the foot speed to rush the quarterback. But I did see him get some inside push. And some good. He's a guy that is definitely a good recruit. I'll get into the obviously we know Mozzie Smith can play. He's the top dog. He played a little bit. He didn't need to play much. We know he can play. He'll be better. The second guy, and this is the reason I'm really thinking this is where the pass rush is going to come from that didn't come last year, because they moved Jenkins inside, Denny. And Jenkins is more, you know, Hinton is a big, thick kid. And he was good at playing what he was asked to play. But he didn't always give us pass rush, you know, because they're just big 320-pound kids. The big thing with Jenkins now is he's thickened up. You can see he's 15 pounds, 20 pounds heavier. He's playing. He knows how to play good technique. He's got enough ass where he's not going to get knocked out of there. But he's got the athletic ability. He's going to give us pass rush. So we're going to get pass rush from the inside guys, I think, more next year than we did this past year. So Jenkins and Mozzie are going to be a hell of a tandem. I feel real good about that. And I feel real good about our depth because I'm going to get into a couple other guys. I talked about Graham. Barry, I could see why he was a highly recruited kid. 26. He's a good-looking player. He's got his technique is good.
Benny, you called him Barry. Rayshon Benny, yeah.
Benny, did I say Perry? Benny.
Yeah.
Benny is going to be in the mix. He's a good-looking kid. He uses his hands well. He's athletic. Every now and then he stands up a little bit. That's what you get sometimes from young guys. But he's a kid that will be in the rotation. Him and Graham will be in the rotation. The other guy that I see in the rotation is 54, Rooks. That's another young guy that is a big, athletic, tough kid. He's got the bull rush. He can play. He was playing the run. Again, these guys got to get a little lower at times. But what else did I see? Let
me read some of the feedback here because Antoine's got a number of questions, and you can just play off of them here. Antoine mentioning that Michigan may not be as good up front in terms of the pass rush, but thinks that they'll be more stout on the defensive line. That'll be and the strength will be the secondary.
I tell you, man, I'm not going to listen. Ojabo and Hutchinson, the edge guys in our defense, those guys have to give us pressure. It is what it is. It's our scheme because the inside guys, they got to protect linebackers. They got to eat up double teams, and they're 320 pounders. That's just what we do. The pressure's got to come from the edge. And I'm going to be optimistic that with Morris and with Upshaw and with scheme and because again, I was that guy that replaced the starter. And many times you think, oh, this guy graduated. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? This guy, Rick Leach, graduated. What are we going to do? And there's another guy that steps up and you're like, the hell with him. This guy, we didn't know about him. So let's be confident that Morris and Upshaw, and with the scheme, again, there were so many pressures last year from our scheme. When you look at stats, when you look at Hutchinson's stats, or you look at some of the sacks that some of these guys had, a lot of it had to do with scheme. When you bring Dax Hill off the edge and the blocker eats up the safety, now that frees up the defensive lineman. But he might be right that we might not get as much pass rush from the outside guys, but I'm confident we're going to still get it done there.
Yeah, I hear you. I listened to been putting a little bit into just reading and listening to what's going on. We're 3 weeks away from today from the NFL draft. And, so they keep talking about Hutchinson. And every time they talk about Aidan Hutchinson, relentless motor, just when you see him live, doesn't take any plays off, just in the scheme, what he was asked to do, just that he was relentless in the way that he played. And he's going to be the first pick. So it is if they get close, like they saw what it took to be the number one pick in the NFL draft. And yeah, the physical tools are there too, and the strength and everything. But I'm sure it's not lost on any of these guys that if you bring it every snap, every play, every rep, if you're relentless, the pursuit and all of that, and they all talk about the coaching that he got. It's great publicity for Michigan, but I got to think those guys that are on the line that were there with him in all of those position group meetings out there on the practice field and watch Hutchinson, they see where it's at. Like I know they've got coaches and everything else, but to be right in training with the guy that's going to go number one, that's going to help those guys that are down there that are going to replace him. No, they can't replace the production of 25 sacks between the two. They can do it as a unit, but I like the idea that they were able to learn from and see a guy who now is going to be the number one pick.
Yeah. Hey, Danny, I think about the guys. That's just something that goes on forever in every program. I think about when I was a freshman, I watched the older guys. The coach tells you some things and you take a lot of it in from your coach teaching you how to play the position. But a lot of it is you watch the older guys on film. You hear what they have to say. You watch them play. You watch them prepare, and you get better as a player. But I think something that's really overrated is the concept that, this guy plays hard on every down. Let me tell you, there ain't no one getting on that field for Michigan on defense that doesn't play their butt off every single down, or you won't go back in the game. Everybody's fighting for reps. I just think that concept is so it just doesn't make sense, because any time you see a guy get on the field, he wants to get more reps. He's going to play with everything he has. He wouldn't have got recruited if he was a lazy guy. They sure wouldn't put him on the field if he's a lazy guy. But
I gotta tell you, Kayvon Thibodeau, who could be the Lions pick at number 2, if he is not, the reason that he is not going to be the pick at number 2 is because the knock on him that he takes plays off, doesn't love football, all the things that they say about Hutchinson, about that relentless motor, loves the game, every single rep is important, is the exact opposite for Thibodeau. Now we'll see. He's very talented, Kayvon Thibodeau, but if he doesn't get picked second, that's why. Because
Danny, I'm going to cut you off. You know what the difference is? That guy played at Oregon. Hutchinson played at Michigan. That's the difference. Okay? So yeah. Believe me when I tell you, that kid would have if he played for Harbaugh, I'm going to tell you right now, he wouldn't have taken plays off, because he would have got subbed out. He would have got his butt ripped. Something would have happened, so he doesn't play tired. That's why I like the idea of playing 4 guys at that position, because I know what it was early on where my coach didn't want to take me out. I'm like, God, come on. You just never, I don't, maybe one day I'll share that story. Now they rotate guys more. They keep guys fresh. There's no reason to not play with everything you have. But I'll get.
Who's that? McCartney, your defensive coordinator? You're talking about?
Danny, I'm going to tell you a story one time about that. We didn't. The mindset when I played was different in terms of rotating guys on defense. They believe that the first team guy is going to play. I don't care if he's tired. He's going to get the reps. And I'd rather have a tired guy who's, maybe might not make the mental mistakes than a backup, a younger guy backup. That was the mentality when I played early on. They changed a little later on. And I see now how, the concept of a rotation that we hear on defense, that wasn't really the mentality back in the 70s and 80s.
When you're a senior, if there are 75 snaps on defense, how many of those snaps are you playing?
When I was a junior, if there were 75 snaps on defense, I took 70 of them.
All right.
When I was a senior, we that was when I started to see a little change. I probably took 60 of them. And that whole mentality is better. I never forgot that as a player, and I always used it as a coach. And I'm going to find a way. I don't care which player is playing on my defense. He's going to be able to get off the field and get a drink of water if a team is putting a long 10, 12 play drive together.
Were you better in well, you're a year older, but is it noticeable? 60 snaps, you're fresher.
Oh yeah, heck yeah! You can, if a team is putting a long drive together. Okay, Denny, I'm going to tell you the story. If we got time, I'm going to tell you my first
time. I think the programming note here is we're going to do all defense today. Next time we'll hit the offense, and that's the way it's going here. We're spending the time on defense. All right, let's hear that story.
Okay, Denny, I got to tell you the story. I'm making my first start. It's Miami, Florida, number 1 team in the country. They come into Ann Arbor. It's about 90 degrees, and just going through warm-ups, it's it's a grind. It's tough. I wasn't used to it mentally. My body's just getting fatigued, and so we get into the game. The game is starting. I'm not playing very well, but I'm in there. I'm the starter, and in the second quarter, they're putting a long drive together. The Hurricanes are putting a long drive together. It's but maybe 10 plays into the drive, and I can hardly breathe. I'm pretty much useless. And I raised my hand, okay, for my position coach to let him know that I can hardly stand out here, coach. Okay. Needless to say, he doesn't send anybody in. We finished the drive. I think we got him stopped. And I come off the sideline, and my position coach grabbed me by the – I love my coach, Milan Vuletic. I love him, but I just want to so people understand the mentality. Now, I had a kid behind me that was a highly recruited kid who was second string, who's fresh. He hadn't taken a snap. But my coach grabbed me by the collar, and he looked at me, and he said, "If you effing ever raise your hand again, you'll never play." That was his way of telling me he'd rather have me dog tired than the second string kid who was a young guy, but that was just a different mentality. I realized then that I was never coming out of the game, and that's just the way it was. That was the mindset. I'm not taking a shot at the way they coached. I love all my coaches. I love the guy who grabbed me like that because I hated my coach for 5 years, but that was just the mindset.
Did you tap your helmet after that ever again?
Never. He made the point. Message was given. You don't come out, man. And that year we rotated guys. The first time we rotated guys was when we went against Brigham Young because you had to rush the quarterback so much. And rushing the quarterback is what really wears on you more so than defending the run.
Robbie Bosco?
Yeah. So people, again, that's another thing I think the analysts get wrong. Playing the run isn't nearly as taxing on a defensive lineman as rushing the quarterback. Rushing the quarterback is you're giving everything you have at a 300-pound guy, and then he throws the ball, and now you got to run and sprint down the field. So it's a different kind of grind. But anyway, Michigan will play probably 25 guys on defense. this year. I'm thinking, and they're going to be in a regular rotation. I see 8 defensive linemen, maybe 9 or 10. 10 they're going to work in there. You know, watching the linebackers, Denny, again, that's the one position I don't know how much depth we have. You know, we've got Junior
Colson. He started as a freshman last year. He seemed pretty solid. Nakai Hill, number 41. You would think that he would be in the mix there.
Oh yeah, those are the 2 guys that are going to start for us. Okay, Michael Barrett is a solid, smart kid. He's not the thickest kid. He'll be. They use him in more in coverage and. But there's a lot of young guys.
Bigger to me. Barrett looked a little bigger to me, but I'd like to see his weight.
Yeah, he's. I stood next to him at practice. You know, he's maybe I don't know, maybe 6 foot, 215 pounds, maybe. I don't know what he weighs, but he's not. He's not like Junior. He's smaller than him.
All right.
But there's some guys. Millings, number 20, who they had on offense, who looked really good on offense. This 34 Hood.
Hood, yeah.
So he played a lot, but I only saw like 4, maybe 5 guys for 3 positions that showed me, hey, we got some depth there. So that's the only position on defense that when I'm looking at, maybe obviously these coaches have a plan, but
I think part of that plan, they got 2 guys that are going to be. They weren't in for spring, but Jimmy Rolder and Deuce Spurlock. Maybe they'll be like the Junior Colson was last year. Maybe they'll be able to find their way in the 2 deep there.
Yeah, if that's where you're going. When I played, we sure as hell never counted on no freshmen, to help you out in anything. If you're counting on freshmen, that's where we were in our early stages.
I hear you.
Building our program. So at linebacker we only played 2 in this game, so that won't be much. We play. He's absolutely right. We most of the time we only play 2 in our defensive scheme, and so that's a good point.
Well, with the exception of so a 3-4, and that's where you take in Jaylen Harrell, and we're talking about those the brush again edges, but against Indiana, that's where you start seeing Michael Barrett pop up and start playing a lot more snaps, and it looked like they went to more of a 4-3. Look, that's the difference in this defense. It goes from a 3-4 to they went to a 4-3 look for a game or 2 there into the middle or late in the season. So.
You know what it is, Denny, is I think they put Barrett in the game in certain situations. He's a linebacker, I think, by position, but when we get third and 9, he'll be in where they might want a guy who can play safety, maybe over a slot receiver and jam and play a flat. I saw a lot of him because that's where you want a bigger, thicker kid who's athletic enough to play in the flat, but can also take on a block by a slot and get into the run game, opposed to a safety. Safeties aren't going to be and that's what I was seeing in the scrimmage, and I think that's what Barrett is going to be a pass linebacker type guy. But we got good players there, a lot of speed. Depth, maybe it's not as much as I would. Now, talking about the secondary, looking at the secondary, I'll be honest. I was focusing on the front 7. I looked at this film, really tried to grind on it, and try to look at the offensive line, defensive line. And what I would say about our secondary is it's pretty a weak answer. But we got about 10, 12 guys that can play. It looked like a lot of athletic kids that will come up and hit and tackle and cover. And you could see the young guys with some of the mistakes, some of the balls thrown over their head. That's technique. In some cases, it was talent. I seen Zero go right by one guy, caught a touchdown. There's no way the guy was going to cover him ever. But that's just talent. There's not much you can do about that. But I saw, Green and Pollard, young kid, 14, Johnson. He's a kid that hadn't played a lot. He made a lot of plays, a lot of tackles. He'll be in the mix. Moten is solid. Moten played a lot. He'll be in the mix. Caden Colasar he's a tough kid. He's physical. He'll tackle. He'll be competing. 7, Page. That's Page, right? 7.
Yeah, Makari Page. Yep.
He looks more physical. He's in his third year. He played when he was a freshman. He wasn't that physical. He looks a little more physical now. But I liked our coverages and our tackling. I thought we did a good job of our coaches do a good job of some fundamental tackling responsibilities, keeping the ball inside the defense. And for the most part, not letting it get thrown over your head. I don't know how much if you know this, Denny, but Jim's dad, Jack, that was his thing. He was a secondary coach. So they know he knows how to emphasize some fundamental good secondary play. But as a basic analysis of the secondary is we've got some really good looking safeties and corners. There's depth. There's going to be competition like crazy there. That's a position you might see some guys leave. This summer, you might see a couple guys leave because what's happening now after the spring game, and Bo did this, I'm sure Jim is doing the same thing. That's when you sit down with your coach and you sit down with each player will sit down with Coach Harbaugh and he'll tell them where he thinks they stand. I remember having some real difficult, tough to take conversations with Coach Schembeckler. He was direct. You're this, and this. And you're not this, and you're not going to play until you do this. So Coach Schembeckler wasn't shy, and I know Coach Harbaugh is he got into the face of these kids because they're all going to wonder why aren't they playing or where do they stand or this, that, or whatever. But anyway, the second would be dramatically better. We might even get covered sacks. That new recruit Johnson was very good.
That's a message feedback for those listening on the podcast to AJ. Saying that the secondary could be better.
I'll tell you, Danny, I thought our secondary played pretty damn good football. Dax Hill will be hard to replace. I mean, that kid, that's a first-round draft choice who covered very well and came up and tackled very well. So that's not easy to replace him. But there are again, just like Hutchinson, just like Ojabo, there's talented, tough kids there. Just because we haven't heard their name doesn't mean they can't be the next David Ojabo. I played with a bunch of guys like that they followed a great player, and then next thing you know, it's like, wow, where'd this guy come from? In the end, Danny, the answer to the question a lot of times is some guys are gamers. Some guys, if all they've done is practice and scrimmage, and sometimes the coaches don't always get to see how good this kid will be in front of 100,000 on national television. And there are sometimes players that really step up their game above and beyond what even the coaches have seen. I've seen it many times. So I'm really confident our secondary will be good because I just saw a lot of depth. I think they're very well coached, and so there was a couple little different schemes I was seeing, minor stuff, but. We fundamentally, we're going to be the same defense. We're going to bring safeties off the edge. We're going to bring linebackers. We're going to drop edge guys. We're going to do a lot of things to create conflict for the offense. So that the foundation of what we are defensively is there. It's in, and I like it. I love it, man, because all they're doing now anybody in our program now, defensively, they've got 2 years to perfect the technique. There's no more, different. It's not, no, now it's just keep getting better, repping it. Every coach talks about reps. That's how you get good at something, man.
Right? All right, last feedback coming from Antoine saying the one big difference he has noticed with the secondary is that the DBs are actually turning around and looking for the ball. I do know there was a pass on the far sideline. DJ Turner was in position. I think it was going to Darius Clemens, the freshman, and it was textbook. He turned, looked, located the ball, had his arm down. It was exactly what I'm sure they looked at it on film, and they loved that. Also done at the goal line, the southwest goal line. There was a 4th and 1, and both of the freshmen were there, and that was Will Johnson and that was Miles Pollard, 24, and those are tough right on the goal line there because you don't know if they're, throwing a fade. You don't know, but it was a stop right on the goal line. Those guys, they got their heads around. They got their hands up. They were able to hit I would think that when they looked at that particular rep and they were going against Cornelius Johnson. The quarterback put it right on him. I mean, that would look like some high-level defensive play there from two true freshmen in for spring. Both of those guys look like they knew what they were doing there.
Denny, some of that stuff, it could have just been coincidence, but a lot of stuff, though, that you see from a player, many times it's what's emphasized by that position coach. If you see certain teams or certain players that play for certain coaches, position coaches, and you get, a certain skill set that might be different than other guys. Yeah, maybe they emphasized it more in practice this spring. You know what I mean? Emphasize the things that Antoine is talking about. But what I really like, though, and I guess we'll get into our offense next time we talk, but what I like big time as a defensive football player and watching our defense is that when I see us go against our offense in spring, we are getting ready for Iowa. That whole spring, we're getting ready for Iowa and their two tight ends and what they do. Okay, we got Maryland's offense in there. Maryland stuff when we go one back with 4 wide. We worked a ton because Maryland's our first Big Ten game, and then we go to Iowa game 5. When I watched that scrimmage Saturday, we worked on both those teams. We worked on Maryland. We worked on Iowa. There's a bunch of Ohio State in there. We got Michigan, so. And then obviously we have Wisconsin if we have to play them in a championship game. Whereas a lot of people that, they get Wisconsin in a championship game, you never worked on that stuff. And then you can't get ready in a week. So I like what our defense faced every day in practice from our offense because of if you can stop that run game, you're pretty damn good because our offensive line is good. There's some good players in there, and so that's another one thing I wanted to point out. Anyway, that's just one last thing I wanted to point out. Go ahead, Danny.
Let me make 3 announcements here. The next time we will talk about the offense, just like we're talking about the defense right now. I've got 2 other things that I wanted to throw your way. One, we've got a hockey game, and that is coming up. I was going to say tonight, but it's actually coming up here at 5 o'clock as Michigan. As you see, it says you see it on the crawl there, the Frozen Four. And it's going to be against Denver. 2 things here, Scar. I mentioned we'll talk offense next time, but you've got the hockey game tonight, and then you've also the news with Brandon Johns Jr. that his college basketball career is not over. It's over at Michigan, but he's hitting the transfer portal. Do you have a thought on either hockey or John's going to the transfer portal?
I got guys I went to school with, hockey guys that are going to the game. There's a lot of East Coast former players and alum that are fired up. They're confident. They feel real good about it. They're excited. They're happy with the direction of the program. That's all I can tell you. I'm not a big X and O guy with hockey, but there's a lot of people fired up. And they believe we have the right coach. That's the one thing I keep hearing from the former hockey guys is they're really happy with the coaching and the leadership. Brandon Johns, man, I tell you, he just needs to change the scenery. His mental confidence with his shot, the whole his 4th year was just rough for him. And he's got another year. He can go somewhere and get a clean environment, and kid will probably have a great year. And I wish him well, but his confidence level is just not where it needs to be to play and shoot the basketball.
I hear you on that. Well, it's a great tee, Scar. We had it was surf and turf, and you went for the surf. But you know what? We've got the turf next time, so that's going to be great. We'll be able to talk some Michigan offense. We didn't plan it that way. We could stay on for an hour or 2 hours talking about the spring game, but this will be a nice little kind of halftime, and next time around we'll be able to talk about Michigan on offense, and there'll be plenty there to talk about, right?
Yeah. Hey, Danny, I'll tell you one quote I heard from Bill Seif that was so huge. It made so much sense. He said the key to college basketball is to get old and stay old. And he was talking about how he was able to, keep that team old And well, obviously there's other things going on in Kansas that we don't want to talk about. But it makes so much sense. You know, you don't always win with freshmen. So hopefully Juwan can keep these kids here and bring in old transfers that are proven players. I just wanted to throw that out because it was a great quote I thought about that is so key and crucial to having a consistent basketball program.
Great job, Scar. I didn't think you'd be quoting Bill Self here this afternoon, but you did it. Nice job. I'm looking forward to talking with you next time out.
All right, Danny, go blue. We'll talk, brother.
All right, we'll see you later. There he is, Jim Scarcelli. I also want to thank Valiant Management here for sponsoring the TMBR Survival Pool. That's Valiant VMG. They hooked us up with the prizes, and those guys are awesome for doing that. And you know that they've got the Michigan versus everybody gear that is so popular with Michigan fans. So I want to thank them, the Valiant Management Group. All right, let's continue talking about Michigan hockey, and we'll head to Boston and bring in the radio play-by-play voice, the long-time radio play-by-play voice of Michigan hockey. That's Al Randall, who joins us here on Afternoon Live. Al, how are you?
Well, live from the hotel where the team is staying here in Boston. It's called the Colonnade, and we're actually in the dining area. It's pretty noisy everywhere else, so I came in here. But Dennis, if you remember, Doug Charge took a ride. We took a ride together to Boston last time Michigan was here in the Frozen Four, and it was quite an adventure. And we had a lot of good time. You may have even been on the board for us and been our producer that day. I can't remember, but you might have been. But here is, I'll hold this up so everybody can read it, if you can read it. This is the 1997-98 Michigan Media Guide.
Yeah.
How about that? It's
so 24 years ago, you were in Boston there, and it was a success, right?
Yeah, and there's Billy McCall right there. And Marty Turco is right there, and Matt Herr on this side. The three captains of Michigan. I actually had two of these, and I gave one to Bill McCall last night. So he's got a souvenir to take home.
Well, Bill McCall now an assistant for Mel Pearson. What do you think is game time draws closer here? If you had to look, Denver, I heard Mel talking about the Denver team saying pretty similar to the Michigan team. They like to fly. It sounds like there could be a lot of scoring in this game.
What you have here in Boston, it just so happens that the four top offensive teams in the nation made it here. So you could see a lot of scoring. So it's the team that plays the best defense is going to win. Michigan has proven that it can play good defense. However, they've struggled in the third period the last couple of games. Even though they won the games, they let their opponents, they had their, the foot on the throat type thing scenario and kind of let them get away in the third period. Those games became closer than they really were. So, yeah, they're all good teams. It's going to be who's going to be playing defense. And I like the line that Michigan has. And it's Jimmy Lambert centering. And he's got Garrett Van Wy on one side, Nolan Moyle on the other. This is a line that can make a difference for Michigan because Mel Pearson will start them against the best line that Denver has, and they have several, but he'll put them out there right off the bat, my guess, tomorrow for the opening faceoff.
Yeah, those are the veterans. When you look at this team, that particular line the old adage in hockey, Al, and maybe it's a little different what you're talking about. It used to be, a 2-0 lead. It's the worst lead in hockey. Maybe for Michigan, is it the 4-0 lead? I don't know. Or the 4-1
Yeah.
lead. So what was it? 4-1 in the Big Ten tournament,
Well,
4-0. The last game heading into the third, and everybody thought it was over, and then it wasn't. The other team going on a power play looking for the equalizer. So 4-0. You can't even rest if that's the score for the Wolverines.
yeah, and you're right. And Mel Pearson echoed that, and very lengthy. We had a very lengthy press conference today. The media was packed in the room. At the mic was Coach Pearson, and he had two of his senior leaders up there, and Mike Passajoff, Jimmy Lambert. And the two of them and Mel spoke for almost an hour. It was remarkable that as many questions came their way. And most of the questions dealt this way is that, and I think one of the correspondents from College Hockey News brought up the fact that in 1997, Michigan might have had a better team than it had in 96 or 98. And I don't think there's much argument there. And I think Red Berenson would tell you the same thing. That was a team that was supposed to win. And they didn't. They got knocked out in Milwaukee by Boston University. Okay. They have a similar scenario this year with all of the draft choices and the Olympic players, the World Junior players, and everything that's been going Michigan's way. This is a team that's had pressure on it from day one. Can it handle the pressure? Yeah, it's proven that. Are they going to handle the pressure tomorrow? Well, we hope so, and we think they are. And but they've shown that they can when they play hockey. They're unbeatable. It's when they ease up and start doing things that are out of character is when they get in trouble. So they got to keep like my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Skizzle, said, got to keep your nose to the grindstone.
Yeah, well, like I had a friend who drove in high school. He always just put that right foot, smashed it down to the floor, and he said, "I'm just going to keep it on the accelerator." Maybe that's what they need to do. But you talk about this, I would say, decorated team, an NCAA record 7 first-round draft picks, and that is what jumps out to people that haven't watched Michigan this year or have just been have watched them and just want to tune in to be like see what kind of show it is. But their most important player was named the most outstanding player in the Big Ten tournament, and that's Eric Portillo, big goaltender. Do you think he's up for the task for 2 games here to take Michigan to the top?
Denver has a goaltender that is also from Sweden, and he is also almost 6'5". So you've got 2 big goaltenders. Here's the difference. We've seen Michigan this year. They can snipe, and they don't have one sniper. They have 5 or 6 guys that can snipe the puck and put that puck in a 3-inch area, anywhere in that net they want to go. That's what Denver's going to have to realize tomorrow. That's what they're going to have to deal with. On the other hand, Denver's got some good players as well. So I think what Michigan's going to do, I think it's all going to be all about the start tomorrow. It's all going to be about the first 5-6 minutes and setting the tone. That's why I again will repeat that I think you'll see the Jimmy Lambert line go first to set some kind of a tone with hitting, and then we'll go on from there. But it's going to be a heck of a matchup. Denver and Michigan have almost identical records. They're up there as far as strength of schedule. I think Michigan had the number 4th hardest schedule this year, and Denver had 5, or vice versa. So it's going to be fun. Of course, the other game later on, Minnesota against Minnesota State. I almost had my picks right for this. I had 3 Minnesota teams and Michigan making it to the Frozen Four. However, Denver beat Duluth.
Well, you can't be perfect, Al. Tell me about the special teams here. It comes down, you end up taking an unnecessary penalty. Both of these teams, you mentioned Michigan with a lot of snipers, Denver, they've been able to put the puck in the net. How much emphasis or how big of a deal do you think, whether it's power play or PK, penalty kill, is going to be in this matchup between Michigan and Denver?
If you look at the statistics for both teams, they're almost identical up and down. Goals against, goals for, power play percentage, penalty kill percentage. So it's execution. It's all about execution. Who's going to execute better? It's going to be Denver, going to be Michigan. That's all about execution. And that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a battle of very two best, I think, of the four that are left, probably the two best teams that are in the field.
Al Randall, a minute or two more here. Al, when you call a game like this, do you cook up anything special? And it's a Frozen Four. You've been to a number of them, or do you you've talked about the theatrics here, like the technical part of the game, and you have to tell everybody what's happening. But do you juice it up a little bit for a Frozen Four?
Well, of course, you get excited. You know the game dictates the level of excitement. We just hope that we can replicate that excitement level that we're watching on the ice for the folks back home. We always try to do that. One thing also that I noticed in Allentown when we were there, the refereeing was superb. Best I've seen all year. And I hope it continues because the referees actually came to the captains in Allentown and said, look, this is the way it's going to go. If you take away a scoring chance, or if you try to hurt somebody, we're going to put you in the box. If not, we're going to let you play. And they did. And they played well. And those games were exciting. And I think if the games are called the same way, that gives a huge advantage to Michigan because they're a more physical team than Denver.
All right, more physical team. You talked about the first 5 or 10 minutes of that first period. We went to the special teams, talked about the goaltenders. When you have big games like this, how about you got a wild card in this one or an X factor when you look at the maize and blue? Maybe that would be one of those. You talk about that opening line there, but is there a player or something else that you would put as an X factor or wild card going into this one?
If Michigan's defense gets involved in the offense, but they do it responsibly, I think advantage goes to Michigan. And I think it's because of the defense. Michigan has pretty much 5 defenders that can actually rush the puck like a forward. They can come right at you. So with that in mind, they also have to be responsible defensively to cover up for those guys when they decide to go. So we'll see what happens. But if you're looking at one player that can make a difference in this whole tournament, it's Luke Hughes.
Yeah, he's like a forward on defense. I've seen that watching him. So all that being said about the fireworks and everything else and the scoring, you're expecting a bigger score here, a shootout type thing, or are you expecting a lower score?
You know, it's hard to say. These goalies are so good, and the defense is so good. I think you're going to find a low-scoring game. It's going to be a 2-1 game, maybe a 3-2 game. That's what you're going to find. First one of the 3, either one of these teams scores 3 goals, they win. That's what I think.
Yeah, well, it was the Morrison goal, the call in '98 there, Langfeld, right, in Boston, scoring the game winner. Those were both great calls. I'm looking forward to a call on Saturday night like that can go up there and rival those first 2 that you had that brought Michigan NCAA titles. Al, I know you're looking forward to that too, and Michigan fans watching are hoping for 2 games, and you having a great call as well with another awesome game winner on Saturday night. Enjoy it. Thanks so much for your time.
Dennis, thank you for inviting me on your show, and go Blue.
And there he is, Al Randall from Boston. We talked with him yesterday. That's why he was Mel and company were not talking this morning. He was saying that those guys had those news conferences yesterday, but they will drop the puck in 3 hours? Wait, yeah, 3 hours. I can add 3 to 2, 5 o'clock. I'll be watching that. And if Michigan somehow, it's going to be a great game. You know, the style of these two teams play up and down, fireworks, should be a great game. My prediction, I usually go with a 4-2 prediction in big games, but considering the offense here, I'm going to crank it up a little bit. I'm going to have Michigan as a 6-4 winner, which will get them to Saturday night. I'll pull for Minnesota in the Big Ten as well. Looking for 2 Big Ten teams in the championship game on Saturday night, which would be great. All right. Oh, thanks to Jim Scarcelli and also Al Randall. And we'll be back here at 1 o'clock. We're the Maize and Blue Review Afternoon Live. We're here weekdays at 1 o'clock, and we'll be here tomorrow. Enjoy the hockey game, and we'll talk with you tomorrow at 1. So long.